Are we live yet?
We are now
live.
currently live
We are
for the last
currently-
5 seconds.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody?
Hold on, we're ready. Oh, good boys.
Flight test.
Hello.
Good afternoon,
Hello.
everybody.
Welcome, everybody.
Hey, we're shooting from a new location today. Hopefully, the acoustics in here are better.
So a little backstory here. Suddenly, Lee pops out of nowhere. We're all working like crazy on some content, and he grabs a B-17 wing and just charges towards the back room.
Give me a break! I didn't charge.
You charge. You had purpose and motivation and energy behind you.
You
saw
thought-
it.
I
You saw
did.
it. I'm not lying.
He even grazed the ladder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like-
you thought I was just gonna go take flight with him, didn't you?
yeah. Well, I was like, "Where's he going with our B-17 wings?" And here it was acoustics. And thank you, by the way, because this is the echo chamber here.
Yeah, it does look good though.
Yeah.
Looks good, sounds good.
It sounds good.
Crazy.
Can't
crazy.
stop, won't stop.
Well,
Yeah.
today's a special day, not just because we're in a different room or I have big B-17 wings behind. We have Dave Messina on the show with us today. And Dave, thank you for making time for this, brother.
Hey, Dave.
My pleasure. Good afternoon.
Welcome, Dave.
So Dave, we got to talk to you last week about FPVFC and FTCA and the collaboration, but there's a lot of history here, and maybe some people don't know who you are. Do you have a moment to share who you are, FPV, Freedom Coalition, all that good stuff?
Sure.
Yeah, and keep it like industry related.
Absolutely. Don't need to go back 40 years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of history with this guy.
Right.
In the FPV world, we're a 501c3 and looking to become a community-based organization under the FAA. And we have been working with the FAA closely, taking a philosophy of being collaborative and working with them to try to advocate for the rights of recreational pilots. So we've just completed our 9th FAA, what used to be Drone Advisory Committee tasking group, now the Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee. I'm not a member, but I have volunteered for 9 of those and have a membership application into the what is now the AC. We were accepted into the drone safety team, different from the FAA safety team. This is a FAA and industry organization that will work on technical safety aspects. For example, target level of safety. I'm a member of ASTM and working on the standards working group of remote ID tracking, as well as UTM. So, and a couple other things. So,
What about OPP?
What about what?
OPP? Are you down with OPP?
Ignore him. Dave.
Other people's.
No.
Other people's planes. So yeah, and by the way, not only is it amazing with acronyms, but this gentleman here, you should flex on your 40 years of previous knowledge because it comes in handy when you're dealing with government agencies. I've had the honor of working with Dave, on Task Group 12, droning on, and a few other things. And his passion for the hobby is amazing, but his ability to keep these crazy acronyms and all the different lines of who connects to what is unparalleled, in my opinion.
It's crazy.
This gentleman truly bleeds trying to make these crazy regulations reasonable, approachable, and not something that's going to burden the hobby. So hats off to you, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, this is kind of exciting. We've been working behind the scenes for a good long time, and if anyone doesn't know, the FTCA, Flight Test Community Association, and our philosophy, we really want to celebrate, advocate, and equip people to be able to impact people in a positive way around flight. That's not only foam board model airplanes. It's anything that takes flight, anything that overcomes law of gravity is special and precious to us. And Dave, you circle the wagons on a different aspect that we don't really do a good job, I guess, speaking on behalf of, and that's FPV specifically.
Yeah, and the FPV, and we've been working in the space of regulations around FPV, a first-person view, and that extends. Our mission is all recreational, but it extends to commercial as well, and commercial in the aspect of small businesses. So cinematography, inspections, things of that nature, and we have found a lot of friends across the crewed or manned aviation industry, as well as the UAS.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. You'll see every once in a while there, Dave, that comments will come up. So this one here says, not to mention his experience working in a very large corporation, larger than the FAA. So I don't know do you know who 507 is?
That's Dan Oakes. He's an FPVFC member. Thank you, Dan. And yeah, that's it's no secret. It's IBM. Was 10 times larger than the FAA at a little over 400,000 when I retired in 2018.
So
Nice.
that's
That's
why
not even that big, I hear. No, just kidding.
that's why you don't need
JK.
duct tape when we were in these meetings, huh?
Right.
That's
Hey,
it.
so this is. I mean, right off the bat.
Yeah.
Why not address something like this? It says we just need to kill remote ID, not waste time supporting it. What are your thoughts on that, Dave?
So it's an interesting point, and of course, the Tyler Brennan, owner of Race Day Quads, is trying that angle. We don't think that at this point, given that the rule's been out, we've had a notice for public rulemaking that was out in 2021, and now the rule it's ready to go. So now we're in a place of let's make the best of it. Let's figure out what we can do to work with the FAA and try to get wins that are incremental. And we'll talk about shielded operations a little bit later. So that's we do think it's trying to kill a remote ID. We just don't think that's practical right now.
Well, in depending on when people got in the hobby, back when Congress mandated the FAA to do this, remote ID was not like a suggestion or something the FAA came up with. Congress went to the FAA and say, "You will have this tech," and I'm guessing that came from Homeland Security, Department of Department of
DHS, DOD, or
Department of
assistant.
Defense. Yeah. I don't like it.
The objective was that the DHS wants to know where every drone is in the sky, and so we know that the FAA's mission and remit is all about safety, and there's not a lot with respect to remote ID about safety. This is about security.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing, and we battled this years ago, was there was a lot of different ways that they wanted to tackle remote ID, many of them which would have required people to pay money monthly just for the fun of recreational flight.
Yeah.
And through the FTCA, FPVFC, and everyone just kind of grouping together around the hobby, we were able to change that in a big way.
Right.
There was network remote ID and broadcast remote ID. Am I getting those right, Dave?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, and thank God we were able to really advocate. That's what we ended up going to CES over, was to communicate like this is burdensome, and it's pretty telling when you have people on these remote ID channels that are all in the telecommunications industry. It is terrible. It is wrong. They were not looking to protect or promote safety. They were looking to monetize. So it's unfortunate. I don't believe that bad people are going to comply with the law. I think historically it's shown that that's not the case. But what we don't want to do is fight bravely, die quickly, and not have an impact. So I hear exactly what that gentleman was saying. It is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, and like he even pointed out there that it's kind of a pointless requirement. I get it. I mean, if people don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. I mean, for people that are out in the middle of nowhere, it's probably not a big deal. But I mean, those that have to go to flying fields and such. Compliance
is a personal choice, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
But here's our passion: is we want to grow the hobby, we want to protect the hobby, we want to go into schools and have people be able to enjoy flight.
Mm-hmm.
How can you do that without giving them the pathway to do it legally and affordably
and safely?
All the above.
And
And so we have to bring solutions. And the time that Dave has put on these different committees is not in vain. He has definitely shaped some things to the benefit. And Dave, you mentioned, I don't want to jump in too crazy, but there was just recently the BVLOS ARC. I'm going to mess up ruling. Is that the right way of saying it?
Well, ARC is part of the ruling.
Yeah.
Aviation Ruling Committee or something like that, isn't that what ARC
That's
stands for?
right. Beyond Visual Line of Sight Aviation Rulemaking Committee. And so this it was about 90 companies that the FAA identified, and this was an industry-led effort with the FAA being present every step of the way. And it was about 9 months, and it was extraordinarily time-consuming. And this is the start of about a 3+ year process. So the on March 10, the ARC submitted 224 pages to the FAA. That submission will go to the FAA rulemaking organization, and that organization will create a notice for public rulemaking, which is, okay, this is their first pass. We have usually 60 days to comment, and then they go back and create a final rule. So that's about 3 years from now, we would anticipate an NPRM, or notice for public rulemaking, to come out.
Yeah, and there are some good, I guess, good things and some bad things. Why don't we start with the good that came from that?
The good to me is how prevalent we were able to get shielded operations discussed.
And shielded operations is something that I definitely want people to take note of that term. It sounds kind of shady, like shielded, but that is something that can be very healthy for us to be able to freely enjoy the hobby and to be able to fly. And that has to do with basically no airplane should be within 100 feet laterally or vertically of any man-made structure or obstacle. So therefore, 107 currently, right? 107 activity should be able to freely take place in that area. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did. And it's 107 and and whatever the new part is. So the entire beyond visual line of sight ARC is all commercial. There's no recreational. So the reason we were so intent on being part of this ARC was that we feel maybe we would be able to get some of these rules moved over to recreational once they're in place and the safety is demonstrated. So shielded ops, the idea of flying below treetops, flying below a building, out laterally, just as Josh was saying, 100 feet. And the idea is, okay, now I can fly behind a building. I can fly behind a structure. And that's the big change, because if you're aware of it today, or aware of it or not, today you cannot fly behind a tree, behind a building. If you're in a bando, you can't fly behind a column. If you're inspecting a bridge, you can't fly underneath the bridge, even though the drone is maybe 10 feet away from you. So this is a big, that to me was one of the most positives. And this whole concept was accepted across the board. And so we had very strong, I would say, opposition to some of the ideas that were more liberal in drone regulations from organizations like HAI, Helicopter Association International, from ALPA, Airline Pilots Association. Now, these are great people. They are serious about protecting their stakeholders, airlines, helicopter pilots. This is very serious, and they're as passionate as we are. And so they like this idea because not a lot of airliners flying below the tree level and 100 feet laterally. Or they'll only do that once.
Yeah.
So
true.
And what I'm excited about is our community. Yes, we love foam board airplanes, but we take a lot of these planes and we get to dive around trees and have a lot of fun here. This is something really important to protect. And from shifting it from 107, once that's accepted, it's really not that hard, hopefully, to be able to shift that to be an acceptance for recreational flight. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. That's what we'll do is we will input, if it's part of the rule or we need waivers, you put in a waiver for flight 107 or for part 107 flight, and then you get that agreed to. It gets to be part of the rules, and then we ask that it become part of the 44809 recreational exception.
That's perfect.
Cool.
That's perfect.
Another key point that's positive is that the United States is behind a lot of the rest of the world in terms of drone innovation. And so without beyond visual line of sight, we really can't innovate. We can't make money from the drone industry. And so critically important is BVLOS ARC was the second big step to allowing industry to innovate. And we've got over 1 million recreational drone operators. It's us who are helping commercial and helping the ideas, and also be a pool of operators, pilots, and engineers. So having these regulations for beyond visual line of sight on the books is important to making money. And certainly there were a lot of organizations that were a part of the ARC that were
Yeah.
really interested in that aspect.
And that's beautifully said, because what's important, I mean, especially from us, and I know from you, we want people to enjoy the hobby. We want them to enter to the hobby. But how many times, Stefan, have I said, make your passion your profession?
Oh, that's almost a daily thing.
It's a daily thing. Yeah. I mean, you know, God put something in your heart that you stirs and you want to do. I want someone to fall in love with flight, and I want them to realize that they can do that every day, and they can provide for their family. They can grow in excellence. And without something like the BVLOS ARC, that wouldn't have that way paved as easily. You would have to pivot over to general aviation, but now you could get a job as a lineman inspection. You could get a job as a bridge inspector. You could get a job in something that hasn't even been created yet as a service. Am I misspeaking there?
That's absolutely.
Yeah, so super, super important. Another thing here is with the, oh my gosh, the BVLOS ARC, I just drew a blank. I got my notes next to me because it's really important to me. Where is it at?
I can. One of the key parts while you're thinking about it, another key element is that we established the recommendations to be that we could do some level of beyond visual line of sight with an extension of Part 107, and then the idea would be there would be some other certification required. Let's call it 108. It's not that's not set in stone at all. None of this is. It's all recommendations. And the 108 would be for much more sophisticated, much more farther out beyond visual line of sight. A 108 pilot would be associated with a type certified aircraft. Now that's FAA gobbledygook, but what this means is the aircraft that we have today are not type certified. So a Mavic, a Gremlin, these are hobby class aircraft. And so they are aircraft, but they're not airworthy, and they do not have to go through a type certification. So if anyone here are private pilots, Josh, I think you are, you know that your aircraft has to go through a type certification. And so there's maintenance logs, and there's who can work on it.
Yeah.
And so this is if this is so important from the perspective of as you start to think about the $10,000 hammer in the military, what does it cost to develop a drone that's type certified? And the answer is a lot. So we would, so this helps keep the costs down. So this is a subtle point in the BVLOS ARC, but it is critically important to us to be able to keep low cost and viable, not only recreational, but small business drones in the air.
Yeah, you could very easily roll into a situation where you have a drone that costs more to have than an actual general aviation aircraft, just because there's 10,000 of those aircraft out there already. That cost has been already consumed. And then suddenly you have a new technology, and it's like, well, it's going to take $14 million to type certify it in 2 years.
Right.
One thing, and I remember it skipped my mind, but one thing I remembered that was really interesting is never have I seen before in some rulemaking is where a model aircraft or a small UAS has the ability to have right of way based on the technology on an aircraft. I about fell off my seat when I saw it, and I don't know if people understand the big deal, but I fly FAR 103, which is ultralights. That means I'm the cockroach of the sky. If it's anything that is manned aviation above 103, you give way. This actually has where, and I'm going to have it, if an aircraft is not equipped with a certain level of ATSB, it has to give way to you. Am I correct?
Right. So if the aircraft flies below 500 feet and they choose not to, and it's controlled airspace, or pardon me, Class G, uncontrolled airspace,
Good.
and they choose not to have a transponder ADSB out, and then so how are we going to see this aircraft flying? And then they have to yield right of way to a UAS or a small UAS, a drone, model airplane. And as you say, that this got people coming out of their seats, but we're very, and you can read some of the non-concurrences and the comments. But this is, we felt an excellent first step to make a recommendation to the FAA that if think about it from a perspective of, well, who's flying below 500 feet? Well, helicopters, and mostly public safety helicopters and agriculture spraying. And are they transmitting ADSB? Well, for the helicopters, it's, the HAI, Helicopter Association, said, like about 100%. So not an issue. The president of AAAA AASC, the Association of Agricultural Aircraft folks, they're happy to put ADSB out on all of their private fleet of aircraft across the country as well. So this comes down to people who don't want to comply are flying airplanes, and now the onus and the responsibility shifts to them to yield right of way. So we felt a very reasonable recommendation, and this will generate a lot of contention.
Yeah, I can imagine it will. Squishy makes a remark here, and I don't want to just look at the good remarks. I want to look at the ones that are frustrating people, because this is a very, very sensitive topic. Making drones is no longer recreation. You've all helped to kill it. This is entirely a commercial discussion. You're right. We are dancing a lot in commercial talk right now because, frankly, commercial is that's a beast that we're not going to be able to kill. But model aviation is recreational, but it should never be something that can't become something that improves lives and affects lives. Again, I said earlier, make your passion your profession. If we can only design drones to be able to fly and enjoy drones as a family, that is beautiful. That is what flight test and FTCA is all about. But if we can't give people the catalyst to innovate, to grow with that, to develop that technology, we are doing a disservice to people and their lives around it. We are talking very heavily about it. And Dave, I think we should also unpack some of our frustrations. A lot of them were discussed yesterday because although the FAA is moving forward with some things to our disadvantage, like remote ID and other rulings, they're way behind on things that they should have done first of all beforehand, and that's CBO recognition and that's establishment of FRIAs. So we are not in any way bowing down to commercial. What we're trying to do is saying, here's the world we live in. We need to fight this, battle bravely and smartly, and make sure that we protect it. The gains that have been done in BVLOS, not all of them are good, but tremendous victories where you look at it. Now let's go ahead and pivot over to the other way and talk about the things that the hobby does need to be able to grow and to make sure that we have a strong foundation of people coming into this hobby. And I think CBOs and the whole establishing FRIAs, I just don't understand why they haven't established them or given us a pathway to it.
Yeah, the FRIAs as well as ad hoc FRIAs. And so if we want to set up an FPV race and we don't have an established permanent flying field, or we want to set up at a school or a park, that's something certainly that Administrator Dixon last year said, "Oh yeah, we'll take care of that," and there's been no movement on that one. So that's critically important in addition to CBO.
Yeah, and FRIAs are important to us with the FTCA because what we want to do is help people establish them, whether it's in a school, whether, like you said, a park, whether it's in a church backyard, wherever it is, even if someone's personal backyard that wants to be able to have people to fly. It is insanely important because if you have an established FRIA location, that means you don't have to worry about recreational remote ID. Or I'm sorry, you don't have to worry about remote ID. You don't have to worry about anything else. So you can come with an amateur-built plane and enjoy it just as it is. And please, if any point I'm wrong on any of these topics, it's really important that 100% accuracy is given to you guys. Interrupt me, but that is something that really, really frustrates me because in one aspect they're putting hurdles up. We're trying to address those, and then at the same time they're not fulfilling their end of the deal with making it possible to do this legally and easily.
Yeah.
There's an interesting aspect of this also in terms of not only have we not killed the hobby, but we've established recreational UAS as a very positive thing. And the FAA said in 2016 and 2017 that drone operators are careless, clueless, and criminal. And we're working to change that to careful, committed, and civil. And we have a very positive reputation and image. You name the aircraft manufacturer, the aircraft association. So this is the manned aircraft industry, and these are the people who are influencing the FAA, and they have decades of regulation background. And because we as FPVFC come to the table with a responsible, polite, professional view, they give us help. Hey, Messina, you might want to go at this problem this way. And so that has helped us be an advocate for recreation. And as we keep saying it to the FAA, they're starting to get it that there are 1.2 million drone operators in the United States, and we outnumber the number of commercial, and we outnumber the number of pilots in the country by a lot. And this is the pool for professionals, just as you were saying earlier, Josh. So, and FPVFC is an all volunteer organization. So there's not an edge or an agenda or an angle. We are passionate about helping kids and helping STEM and making sure that the United States has success as we go forward.
Definitely. It's kind of funny. You talked about 1.2. It wasn't too long ago. It was 1 million. And the best thing we can do for the industry and for our cause is to take it from 1.2 to 1.3 to 1.8. One of the huge reasons we're so involved in STEM, one of the huge reasons we're always communicating about equipping you, amazing community members, to go out and how to teach people how to fly, how to engage local areas with this great hobby and show how positive it is. It's not something that can be debated out. It's something that can be demonstrated and adopted. And I desperately, I remember 72 megahertz. David, I'm sure you do too, because you have gray hair. Do you remember the hoops you had to go through to fly 72 megahertz? I think that's been very forgotten. There's a time where you had to pretty much go to a model club. You could fly in your backyard, but it was pretty rare. You went to a model club. You had your AMA card, and you would take your AMA card up to a frequency board, and you'd find your frequency. And if there was a little bobby pin missing from that frequency slot, you couldn't fly. There was no flying for you. You had to wait till that pilot came back and then put their little pin there. And then you went up and you had to have a little tiny flag saying your 72 megahertz, another little flag on your antenna saying what channel you were on. You had to make sure it was clearly demonstrated. And then you walked up to a flight line behind a pilot station and you flew. And there was a lot more intimidation, a lot more headaches, a lot more frustration and emotion when it was the world of 72. Along comes 2.4. This amazing technology allows now tons of people to fly together safely. I love it. Then comes, FPV. There's a little bit of frequency management and some etiquette to go in there. Technology has been growing like crazy. Drones didn't exist back when this stuff came, and there's so many, jobs, so many opportunities, so much technology that can just improve people's lives. I do not want to see that go away. But what I do want to see is people that love flight to be able to benefit from that. And it's just so important. And it is a very careful dance. But what we're not doing is appeasing just to get in good favor. We're working with to be able to sway opinion and influence others.
Right. Yeah, we feel we can make a bigger difference if we're working from within. Yeah. And that's what we've done.
I don't want to throw stones, but fighting bravely and dying quickly and then declaring you're a martyr is the easy way out. And any of us could take that route, is to just make a big old stink, a lot of noise, and then become totally irrelevant and not do anything for the hobby. I don't believe that's our case and our cause, and I don't want it to be either. We want to be able to work within this, and it's everyone's personal right in this amazing country to decide how they're going to adopt this. But for us to introduce the hobby to someone, we cannot do that in good conscience unless we give them a pathway to do it properly and easily. Do we have some questions up on the board? Matter of fact, and guys, if you have any questions specifically for Dave, please post them.
Yeah, great decision. Well, I'll say this, that just listen to you, Dave, and hearing your passion behind everything that you have going on and the things that FPVFC and Flight Test and FTCA are kind of doing together. It gets me fired up. Like it gets me excited about what's coming sooner rather than later. And I know that obviously we can't always affect what the FAA does and when it does it, but like we've been talking about here probably every other day for the last, year or so, is that we're going to be ready when it does drop. Right. And that's at this point, that's all we can do. That when the switch is flipped, we're ready to go full force, which we're excited to be doing that with you.
Yep. And I'm seeing a lot of questions about sub 250. That's one reason why we put the nanoflurkin out early. Dave, why don't you explain the beauty of sub 250?
So Dan Oakes is our resident expert on sub 250. So if you want to fly commercial, a lot of the rules change. There he is. Thank you, Dan. Exempt only, or only from registration, all of the rules apply, and remote ID. So that's a great summary. So if that last sentence there, so we're all worried about remote ID, and we think, well, what does flying below sub 250 get me? Well, that says, okay, I don't have to have remote ID. Pretty cool. I don't have to have remote ID if I'm flying recreationally. If I'm flying under a Part 107, then I do need remote ID on my sub 250. So there's still a very positive aspects of sub 250. And if I am going to fly under Part 107, then I can fly at night and over people with a sub 250 with simply shrouded props. So there definitely are aspects about sub 250. And if I may, Dan has written a nice write up on sub 250. What are the pluses and minuses, and what are the details on our fpvfc.org website. So that's it's a reference that a lot of people go to because the FAA has certainly made this a little complicated.
Yeah, no doubt. And for most of our community, you guys all fly recreational. 107 is for people that do this professionally, that get paid for their services. So if you're flying the Nano Flurkin and you're cruising around and you're dip diving between trees, you don't have to worry about remote ID in the future. You don't have to worry. I don't think you even have to be registered, right? There's no registration.
There is for your aircraft. You have to register yourself. And then you have to put the sticker on your aircraft.
Is that even with sub 250?
No.
That's
not.
Yeah.
No.
Right. So yeah. Okay. Good. I was like, wait a minute.
Hey,
yeah.
Let's look at this here. Squishy 654 said build and fly VBS all the time, or whatever that VBLOS.
Visual beyond line of sight.
Right. These guys are they are all outlaws and not included or represented in any group, nor is anyone trying to blend reality with regulation. I don't know exactly his heart behind that, but I don't think that's a true statement. At least here, the outlaws, the quote unquote outlaws, the guys that are flying the wings and everything. Is that what he's referring to there? Is that they are seen as outlaws and not included in any registration or in any groups?
Well, flying anything I would take this apart in this way. Flying beyond visual line of sight today is not without a waiver is not legal. And there are any number of videos that you can find on YouTube where folks are flying FPV and they're flying out for significant distances. And these are some really sophisticated rigs, special antennas, and they're pushing the technology. And so one of the discussions that we've had with a couple of these groups, as well as the FAA, is, we could just call this research because, oh, by the way, most of the guys who are wiring their own antennas, flying 30 miles out, amazing, distance, they're doing it safely. And they are very technical. And so this could be advantageous to innovation. So that's the approach we're taking. And to certainly, we are, and that's what our position or our representation sitting on the Beyond Visual Line of Sight ARC was all about, was to try to make sure that there were avenues and there was thought about recreation, research, and just basic educational institutions that they can continue to fly and fly beyond visual line of sight, without waivers. And that's what we're pushing for in the future. So the ARC is not recreational, but it absolutely will include research and education.
I like that loophole.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it's real too, because research and stuff, that kind of stuff needs to be tested. So it's a great avenue for you to do it.
Completely understand that.
Yeah, and as far as waivers, I remember back when all this different waivering system, came even before Lance, we were able to establish when we were in North Canton we got a waiver, and we had I think it's year by year, correct?
Yeah, I believe it was 6 months to a year of some
Yeah.
kind, and it was a specific
It
space.
was a 1 mile square,
Yep.
400 feet above our tower. So
Mhm.
it wasn't even just 400 feet; it was 400 feet above the tower. Now, keep in mind, we are less than 5 nautical miles from Akron Canton Airport. And it didn't take a lot of work to be able to communicate. And what really was funny was because we would call up to the tower so many times, let them know, hey, we're doing this activity. They're like, we know you're there. Come on. Like, okay, fine. And we're like, no, we're not stopping. Well, TJ, when he's on the team, he was the one that's like, no, I'm getting a permanent thing.
Yeah.
And he did. And it wasn't that hard. And we were able to fly less than 5 nautical miles from Akron Canton Airport and have a nice little 1 mile by 1 mile by 1 mile square.
Yep.
Of
There's a good example of one of the things that we were very involved in. One of the recommendations we made last summer was VHF or from the ground be able to get onto a Unicom frequency and talk to pilots, not air traffic control, but to talk to a pilot in an uncontrolled airspace who are circling. Maybe they're going to land. Maybe or what are they going to do? I'm going to stay out of that guy's way. But what is he going to do? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to just talk to him or her as the pilot? And that got included in one of the recommendations that went forward to the FAA. So to make that legal, you don't even need to go to the FCC. That can just be a change through an advisory circular through the FAA. So this is a great example of we had people working with us saying, this could help for recreational guys too. And they explained to us the angle, how easy this could be for the FAA to change. So just being there in the room helps a ton when you have a great collaborative attitude.
Very good, for sure. Very good. Yeah, that's good, and I like the aspect. I think we're going to win a lot of this battle through the educational world. Having the more schools we can get to basically adopt flight into their schools, which is still a very, very new thing. I'm seeing more and more every day pop up. We're seeing more and more schools that are brand new. I know Paul does STEM plus C. He's been commenting in here as well. He uses tiny trainers like crazy, by the way, Paul. Thank you for that. But that is, I think, a great catalyst to be able to change the minds and hearts of people because those kids, they learn it in school. They go home with that knowledge. They get to introduce it to their parents. The parents recognize that passion. Next thing you know, they're not only endorsing the hobby, but they're also doing it together. And incredibly, incredibly important. And I do think through schools, the whole aspect of recreational experimentation can be softened, and people can adopt that too because now it's an educational project. That's a difficult one. Beyond visual line of sight for recreational activity needs to happen because it pushes the technology. I just imagine if Trappy wasn't out there doing some of his crazy videos, we wouldn't really know what this industry could do or what it would be capable of. The innovation still to this day comes from the recreational pilots.
Correct. Great point.
Good stuff. Any more questions?
No, I don't see any more questions. We're getting up on time too.
All right.
Yeah.
Holy cow, that went really quick.
Coming up to 40 minutes.
Yeah. So if there's if any of you out there listening and have any final questions, now's the time.
This is a little bit more of an intense than normal conversation, but it's really important that you guys hear it too, and where the industry is going and what things are going on as well, and what's being done behind the scenes.
It's a different kind of update.
Yeah.
Than just us sitting in there chatting about what we have going on here at Edgewater and Flight Test. So I think it's been more than great.
Yeah. And one thing we're definitely committed to is keeping you informed, whether you like the information or not. We want to keep you informed. We want to keep you knowledgeable of what's going on so you guys can make personal choices of your own. And you're equipped too.
And so in next steps, one of the Josh mentioned earlier that the last FAA reauthorization took place in 2018. So they do 5 years. So the next FAA reauthorization is 2023. That will be worked on this year. And so that's an aspect that we will be working with congressional representatives who are on the oversight committees of the FAA, as well as we've offered to the FAA, what can we do to help to provide insight and to change that careless, clueless, and criminal to careful, committed, and civil. So that reauthorization is just as Josh described. That's the law. The FAA doesn't make laws; they make rules, and the laws or the mandates are established by Congress. So it's critically important that we talk to Congress going forward to get a foot in the door on the 2023 Reauthorization Act.
And it's incredibly important you guys reach out to your congressmen and women to be able to influence them and share the importance in a civil, polite way. A lot of the comments we saw during the comment period were so inspirational. A lot of them were incredibly destructive. This is not troll time. This is fill their hearts and minds with knowledge, especially the congressmen. I don't want to say you don't get very far with the FAA, but that's a lot more surgical. The congressmen, the people that you can vote on, not the people appointed, are the ones you can influence the best. And we definitely need you to take time to do that. And I think as time moves forward, Dave, it's safe to say that we'll be bringing topics up and equipping people.
Absolutely. We'll be guiding hand, as well as the most effective is to identify which are the appropriate transportation committees. And we've got that automated, and we will be, we're helping with talking points, as well as identifying the appropriate congressional representatives, as well as senators.
And the FPVFC and the FTCA will both be doing and giving you guys that information. So speaking of that, Dave, why don't you share with them where they could find out more about FPVFC?
It is fpvfc.org.
That was super easy.
It is. Yeah. That's hopefully frictionless.
Yep. And
Dave's going to be writing some articles. We've asked Dave himself and then the FPVFC to submit some articles for the FTCA. So in the update, when you log onto your member portal and you go about your business in there, you're going to see some of Dave's work, and I'm sure Dan will get in a little bit on that, and Josh, aka Cujo, and Alex. I'm sure their whole team.
All great people.
Oh, yeah.
And if you guys aren't aware of FTCA, why don't you pop that link up as well too? You can see what we're doing in partnership and on our own as well with that. So check out both of them. With FTCA, with Flight Test, our goal is never to be standing alone. It's to really partner with people like minds and like hearts.
Awesome.
So that's our philosophy, and I'm really happy to have that relationship with you guys.
Awesome.
Very good. Well, that time went way too quick.
Yeah. Well, hey, we'll have to have them on again in the future.
I think that's definitely going to happen. Dave, thank you so much for being part of this, and please tell your team thank you too.
Yeah.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Hey, and Stefan, any final words of wisdom?
One quick one, just to reiterate what Josh said.
No, they've got to be your own.
They have to be new.
They cannot be Josh's.
They can be mine.
Oh man.
No.
Wow. Can I do two then? Can I do one? Can I do one of his and one of mine? No, just to reiterate what Josh said earlier about when you're bringing these informational points up to your congressman, do it with love, respect, and from the right place in your heart and your mind, because that's going to go much further than coming in with a nasty heart or just trying to make a splash or whatever that might be. So that's the first one. Secondly, make sure that you go and spend time with people in this hobby. Maybe learn something new. Maybe make a connection with somebody through this hobby, because that's what it's about. It's about making those community connections and making memories that's going to last a lifetime, which is probably why Josh and Dave are sitting here. They probably made a ton of memories over the last 10, 15, 20 years. And they're super passionate about what they believe in and what they do. And that's where the vision of FPVFC came from. It's where the vision of Flight Test came from. And so,
FTCA.
And the FTCA. So make sure you go do that. Find somebody to do that with and enjoy time together.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you in a week, and we love you.
Yep.